What other legitimate options does Israel have in dealing with Hamas? What other legitimate options does Israel have in dealing with Hamas? Everything I read up until this point tends to align along ideological lines and not pragmatic ones. Broadly speaking, in order from most right-wing to left-wing. 1. Do whatever it takes to solve this problem once and for all. Burn Gaza to ground if they have to. 2. Attempt to negotiate a ceasefire and get another peace deal. 3. Hamas or freedom fights and legitimate government. Israel or white colonizers and committing a genocide. Tactically, what options does Israel have if Hamas is using hospitals and civilians to bait Israel? My left-wing friends say don't respond. I feel like I'm 30 years we will be reading about a new terrorist attack and the person will say it was because of this. Not relevant to the essence of the question. But I want to point out that most Israelis are Sephardim and Mizrahim, Middle Eastern, and not white Ashkenazi. So calling them white colonizers is just projection and navel-gazing from outsiders. Hell, a lot of the people that play Arabs in American film and television are actually Israeli Jews. Because we can't tell the difference. If anything, only focusing on white Israelis says more about us than it does about them. Negotiate a deal with a boss and do a joint counter-terrorism operation in Gaza. Tactically, I'm not sure what bombing Gaza to smithereens even accomplishes. Hamas doesn't have the infrastructure of a normal military, so what effect can their current tactic have? They have hostages. So a bombing campaign increases the risk to the people you want to save. The current approach will only guarantee that a new generation of Gazans will grow up hating Israel. Talk to Qatar, since that is where a lot of Hamas leaders are actually staying. You must first eliminate Hamas. At all cost. They have to go. You can help to rebuild PA when all of the Hamas elimination is over. Until then, it's going to be ugly. And any group that wants to invade, kill, take hostages, etc., should think of some other way to conduct business. I am left-leaning and invading is a legitimate response. You can't bomb them out of their tunnels. They must be rooted out. Then a peacekeeping force should be brought in. Perhaps made up of Arab nations that negotiated with Israel to do just that. That would help reduce Iran's influence and strengthen Israel's ties with potential Arab allies. Hamas exists in a vast network of tunnels under Gaza, which extend under hospitals, schools, mosques, etc. They can't be destroyed from above without massive civilian casualties. Hamas has made it clear that they will not allow Gazan civilians into their tunnels. And they're undoubtedly heavily booby-trapped. In order to get to the entrances, Israel needs to control the land. Then back up all their trucks to the adits. Seal their tailpipes into the adits. And crank up the engines. There are only two ways to handle terrorists. Either you neutralize them, kill or imprison. Or let them continue to try and kill you. Israel's response for decades has been to accept the latter, that can't continue. There is no mythical third option where Hamas magically gives up their explicit aims of genocide. There's no peace deal with an organization that literally has stated goal of your total complete destruction written in its charter. Why does no one remember Afghanistan or Iraq? This never works. Keep in mind, genocide is not a legitimate option. There is a problem with the legitimate options. They won't work. At least, not the way you want them to. Given that the rules of war are so thoroughly broken, the only real solution is basically to throw out the rules of war in the case of Hamas. A non-starter, because people have gotten this erroneous idea that you've got to follow the rules of war at all times and that reprisals are off limits. X200B. Oh. And historically, the entire hearts and minds thing never really worked, and where they worked are the exceptions to the rule. What kills insurgencies the best is outright brutality. The more brutal, the better. Same difficulty Mexico has in getting rid of the cartels. An entrenched, well-armed, well-funded, brutal opponent doesn't face justice for their crimes voluntarily. Israel is justified in marching every Palestinian from their homes and point them towards Iran. Palestine did this to themselves when they elected Hamas into power. Just as you should not feel sympathy towards destroyed Nazi Germany or Imperial Japan. This is the same thing. The best military in the world, and the answer is bomb it all? Not only barbaric and stupid, JTS a waste of money. We have special ops for a reason. How many people do we really need to eliminate? Not a wild city. If this is what tax dollars buy, then put them towards better use. New foreign diplomacy. Never drop another bomb, or give money to any foreign nation. Only drop food and water with big flags on them. In 20-30 years, those children will only remember that the US dropped or was responsible for food. They will have no need for any revenge or hate. It will eventually end that form of extremism and terrorist. Hunt down and kill individuals who are active in Hamas like you did Nazis after WW2. Step up your game so October 7th can't happen again. Where was the Mossad and the IDF when a bunch of half-witted sociopaths on hang gliders and motorcycles were freely gunning people down for hours? Meanwhile, stop stealing land that doesn't belong to you. Stop gunning down kids for throwing rocks. Stop filling your jails with Palestinians for nothing. Stop carpet bombing civilians, even if Hamas is using them for shields. You can't murder babies. That makes you as bad as Hamas. Hamas thrives on the hatred Palestinians feel toward their oppressors, the Israelis. If Israel wants peace, it will end its bloody occupations of Palestinian homeland. Short of that, it must revert to its pre-1967 war borders and stop treating Palestinians as third-class servants. Do that, and Hamas will have no cause to exist. Send in special forces to go after actual Hamas officials in Gaza. Have the US or UN negotiate with Qatar to let Israel send special forces to go after Hamas leadership in that country. While going after Hamas leadership, provide aid to the locals to try and earn whatever trust is possible. Tactically, go in on the ground and conduct block-by-block clearing operations. Presumably THDIRN intelligence services have already good data on who the Hamas militants are. Check every person in Gaza against your list. Reckies everyone not on it. There's nothing ideological about ending the genocide that the Israeli government is currently perpetrating on the Palestinian people. Ending the genocide also happens to be the most pragmatic thing to do. We should also hold those accountable for the war crimes they've committed up to this point, and grant humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. The only lasting solution is for Israel to stop treating Palestinians as subhumans. That involves a lot more than a ceasefire. But a ceasefire is a good start to ending the genocide. Negotiate a peace. Originally. Obviously that's now dead in the water. So negotiate a dissolution into a single secular state with universal suffrage. From my point of view, right now, Israel is responding to terrorism with terrorism, which will create more terrorism back on Israel. So they are not really dealing with the problem. They just appear to be. The only legitimate option is to look at the causes of the terrorism against them and deal with the causes so it ends the terrorism they face.